Hello and welcome. After this small teaser, let's break down which steps were needed to create this small prototype of a well-known game level. First, we have the preparation. Moving on to part 2, the level. Next up is player movement. After that, it is time for the basic game loop. And last but not least, the polishing. Oh, and technically there is also a summary, so maybe we count that in, I don't know. So in order to get started, I open up the good old Epic Games launcher and create a new Unreal project with the version 4.26.1. I enable starter content as it contains some handy materials and props, which I'm going to use later on. Also, I'm kind of lazy and I don't want to create the art myself, as this project is about prototyping and I'm not Blender guru. And with the final concept of the game already in our minds, that's all we need about preparation. First of all, we need to get the layout of the map. So in order to get this quickly, I go to YouTube and search for Mario 64 Peach Slide DS. Now I screenshot this, crop it out and import it as a texture into my Unreal project. With the texture inside of Unreal Engine, I just drag it onto a plane and there you go, we got the map ready. Well, at least we can walk on it, right? After that, I scale it up properly and now it really is the time to think about whether I wanna build this thing as a whole or break it up into small pieces which I can move around like I want and maybe even create some modular tracks. I decided that I want to be brave, so I opened up Blender for the first time in like 3 years and started modeling. Oh boy. After a decent amount of time, I ended up with something like that, and naturally I was like, okay, screw this. So back to Unreal, I'm going to do it my way with modular pieces and with a handy cool feature which is called BSP brushes. I modeled out all the shapes and stuff and actually it is going pretty well with the straights and all that. But the curvy parts and the curves could be tricky as I just used stairs for now. You might think I can just fix up the stairs in Blender, but that looked oof! It was at that time when I discovered the best button in the entire Unreal Engine, which is sloped floor inside the brush settings of the spiral stair. Damn, I probably just look like a fool now. Anyways, so the level is done now and as you can see, I can run around having a blast already. But in order to slide, we have to move on to the next point. Movement definitely was the trickiest part of this project. There were multiple routes to go and I had to try lots of stuff to find out what works best. Also, I wasn't even sure how close I want to stick to the original, as even the DS version and the N64 have slight differences. In the end, I decided that I want to keep both originals as a rough reference, but make my own style out of it. Some key things had to be the exact same as in the originals for the game to feel right. For example, the slide on butt, the character facing along the slide, and the uncontrollable camera. So to test anything, we need a slide mechanic. And of course, the first thing I did was googling how to slide character in UE4. Then this tutorial pops up and you know what? It's pretty cool for the first hit. As I followed the tutorial, I did learn a lot about the character movement, but moving to the actual slide, it was just unusable. Next thing that comes to my mind is, how about being super cheap and making the character fall constantly? What I mean with this is the awkward flow state where he puts his hands up like this. Yeah, this could probably work. So I delete everything from the slide and glide and just put like 5 degrees in the box max walk slope angle under the character movement component. And voila! To get the full effect of this method though, and for it to be feedbacked or anything, we definitely need this guy to sit down on his butt now. So now, all animators please look away for a second. And there you go. Every time we fall now, our dude does this. Wait, this reminds me of something.
Button twice.
Yes, I knew I've seen this crazy good movement somewhere else before. Now, we got the base laid out, but all the stuff still needs adjustments. we still have 2 points on our movement to-do list: the character rotation and the wonky camera movement. Luckily, we can do both these things pretty conveniently together. As said before, there are many ways to do things, and I have to admit that I was kind of stuck here first. But after discovering one solution which worked fine for me, looking back at it, it was pretty simple. So what we first need is a spline. This is just like the rail on a roller coaster, which we lay down along our level. After that, we just need to tell the camera and also the player that they should turn in the direction of the spline at any point during sliding. So with this, we get that. As our character automatically accelerates when we press forward and tries to sort of brake when we move back, the rough movement is already done, and with that, our prototype is almost playable now. For the protocol though, I did experiment with different gravity settings and the option air control to pinpoint the right speed for this guy sliding down the slide. What we need next is more programming to set up the most important thing, in my opinion. Now, what do I mean when I say basic game loop? According to this site, a gameplay loop is a game design term that is used to describe the repetitive activities that a player will take while playing a game. So in order to reach this goal, the first thing we need is a fully functional timer and a button to restart the game at any point. And not going to lie, the timer gave me lots of headaches. At first, I just followed the most basic tutorial I could find and did some casual math. Basically, we were just counting upwards. Now that works fine for minutes and seconds, but for milliseconds that's super inefficient and has no chance of working without a delay. So I had to use the actual timer thing, which surprisingly wasn't used in tutorials very often. I managed to get it working though, and now we just need a cool widget to show the timer on screen. There you go. Now what's left to do is kind of a start and a finish line so that the timer knows when to start and when to stop. I start with creating a blueprint for the start line. I pretty much tell it that if our character enters it, a boolean with the name timer start is set to true. Then I tell the timer function, which I created earlier, that it should execute x times per second, but only if timer start is set to true. And as you can see, the timer starts now properly when we walk up onto the slide. To wrap up the rough game loop, I duplicate the start line blueprint, change it up a little bit and set it to the end of the map for the finish line. Now let's test this. Works like a charm. Now let's move on to the last part of this project. First things first, we don't want a lawsuit from Nintendo, but this guy certainly doesn't feel like Mario at all, if you know what I mean. Ah, much better. Amazing hat. You know what? Maybe even a little more detail. Let's go. Now he's ready to slide. Nice. Next up, we finally build the missing parts of the level and apply some materials from the starter content to it. Nice. Also, it might improve the gameplay and feel if our little mannequin would lean in the direction which we are steering. So let's do that. Alright, that works pretty good, I would say. But the level doesn't say, hey, I am a slide and I belong to Fancy Peach with her pink dress. So we have to change that and peach it up. The very last thing to do would now be to add a menu and maybe a map selection screen or something similar. So, did I really have time for that? So, what did I learn from creating this experience? And what can you learn from me learning, if that makes sense? First, trying different approaches for one goal might be scary, but it's actually super worth and teaches you a lot. Second, sometimes the solution is right in front of your big nose and you really need to get some days off to even see it. And third, finishing the project on time is better than putting every possible detail in it, causing the project to never get finished. If you made it this far, seriously, thank you so much. I have a lot of plans for this channel, but as this is the first video, I was a bit unsure and skeptical about, well, a lot of things. I would love to do some similar projects again, and if you have some ideas, just let me know in the comments below. Also, I want to announce that with the start of May, I will launch a monthly series of videos where I create very small games out of the Unreal Engine Marketplace free of the month collections, which I might even upload on itch.io, so get excited about that. That was it from my side. I hope you had a good time and I wish you a nice day.